Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at something pretty fascinating. A film that had huge expectation, but, well, really didn't land. Disney's live-action Snow White.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking how much buzz there was, and then poof. So our mission today is to unpack the tangled mess of reasons behind why it struggled so much at the box office. We'll look at different claims, different perspectives.
Exactly. And we're mainly drawing from the YouTube channel Clownfish TV. They're pretty blunt, as you probably know, but also pulling in reports from Deadline and BuzzFeed. We're going to sift through all that and see what insights we can find about why some sources literally called it a disaster.
Okay, let's get into it.
Yes.
One of the first and maybe kind of surprising angles came from Gal Gadot herself, right, Queen?
Yeah, that was interesting.
She initially hinted, didn't she, that the film's problems were partly tied to Hollywood pressure about speaking out against.
That's right. It came up in this interview she did, kind of an unusual setting, with some amateur journalists on the autism spectrum in Israel.
And her original quote was something like, "I was disappointed that the movie was greatly affected by that and didn't do well at the box office." She was quite clear initially.
So she really thought that was a major factor.
It seems so. She also mentioned how much she enjoyed making the film, even said she had fun with Rachel Zegler, and she was totally convinced it was going to be a smash hit. So that political pressure angle was definitely her first public take.
But then she sort of clarified things later, or walked it back a bit.
Yeah, pretty significantly. Later on, she stated, of course the film didn't fail solely because of external pressures. There are many factors. You know, the usual line about success never being guaranteed.
Right. The standard PR move, maybe.
Possibly. But she also added something more personal. She said she felt criticized when the film came out in a very personal, almost visceral way, specifically as an Israeli, not just as an actor.
Ah.
And apparently she also kind of threw in a you win some type of comment, so acknowledging it's complex.
So I guess the question is, was this pressure real? I mean, was it the main thing? Or just one piece of a much bigger puzzle?
Well, our sources do suggest that yes, there is pressure in Hollywood around certain geopolitical issues. That's undeniable. But the industry is also really divided on the issue. You have many Jewish Hollywood, very different.
It's not monolithic.
Not at all. And it's also true that some people did specifically boycott the film just because Gal Gadot. So it was definitely a factor around. But the sole reason, probably not.
Okay, that makes sense. So if that wasn't the main driver, what else was going on? Because Clownfish TV, for instance, they had a much starker take, let's say.
Oh, absolutely. Stark is a good word. Their core argument was incredibly direct. Basically, it looked like Schurt and Rachel Zegler.
Wow. Okay. Unpack the look like shirt part first. What were the specific visual or concept?
Well, the big one everyone seemed to latch onto was the CGI dwarves. They were just widely described as uncanny valley creepy, you know, that deeply unsettling feeling.
Yeah, where it's almost human, but not quite right. Very off-putting.
Exactly. And beyond just the look, there was this general feeling that Disney tried too hard to modernize it, but ended up stripping out things people actually loved about Snow White.
Like what?
Like the prince not really being a love interest anymore, making him some kind of bandit, and getting rid of true love's kiss, core stuff.
Right, things that are pretty fundamental to that specific fairy tale.
Yeah.
You change those. Is it even Snow White anymore?
That was the argument many were making, yeah. It felt like they misunderstood the source material, or worse, were disrespectful.
And then, okay, the second part of Clownfish's take. Rachel Zegler. You said she's like kerosene on fire. How did she become so central to the controversy?
Well, according to the sources, a lot of it stemmed from her own public statements. They really seemed to ignite the backlash.
Like the D23 Expo comment.
Exactly. Her remarks there about being a girl boss, not needing a man, calling the prince a stalker. Some people saw that as her basically, pissing all over Walt Disney's legacy, to use Clownfish's phrasing.
Glucked.
Very. But it reflected a certain sentiment online. Then there were her political stances, which became huge flashpoints, putting Free Palestine in her social media bio, for instance.
Yeah.
And that apparently had real-world consequence. Our sources mention Gal Gadot and her family actually needing Disney-hired security because of death threats they reportedly from some Zegler fans.
Wow, that's serious.
Extremely serious. And then add her anti-Trump comments on top of that, calling his supporters foolish, hateful, suffering from a great sickness, things like that.
Which politically alienates a huge chunk of the potential audience.
Precisely. Clownfish argued she effectively told more than half the audience not to bother seeing her movie.
So what was the general perception of her during all this? How was she seen compared to Gadot, maybe?
Well, the perception, at least among critics cited by our sources, was that she came across as young and dumb or politically pickled, even insufferable, especially when you contrasted it with Gadot, who seemed more professional, especially with her later clarification.
Right.
There's even this anecdote, though unconfirmed, that a Disney exec flew out specifically to tell Zegler to, tone it down. And she supposedly replied, "Nobody's going to tell me what to do." Whether that's true or not, it fits the narrative that was building around her.
Yeah, it paints a picture.
It does. And it led Clownfish TV to their really strong, it's almost all Rachel Zegler is why they called her the single stupidest casting choice that just lit it on fire.
That is an incredibly harsh assessment, focusing almost entirely on her. But surely there has to be more to it. Like, couldn't she have just been a convenient target for broader issues?
That's a really important. And yes, if you zoom out, you see this Snow White situation didn't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah.
There's a definite sense of audience fatigue with these live action in general.
Right, people are kind of tired of it.
Yeah, regardless of who's in them or what the controversies are, many feel they just don't add or they lose the magic of the original. So the film was already swimming up.
And with Snow White specifically, it's not just any story, is it? It's the original Disney feature.
Exactly. You have to remember, the 1930s animated film wasn't just another movie for Disney. He bet everything on it. It was his first full-length feature, the one that, paved the way for the entire Disney empire.
So to see this remake become such a, well, you said Clownfish called it.
An albatross of a cluster F was the phrase used, I believe.
Right. Quite the contrast to the original's legacy.
It really is. And sources compared this failure to other big bombs, like John Carter or Mars Needs Moms.
Oh, yeah, those were rough.
But the argument is that the Snow White failure feels somehow more epic just because of that foundational legacy. It hits different,
Definitely. Did Disney react internally? Any shakeups?
Well, interestingly, yes. The executive who was in charge of the live-action remakes was actually demoted around that time. Officially, it was framed as him deciding to pursue other passion projects.
Ah, the classic explanation.
The classic explanation, yes. But the timing was certainly noted by industry watchers.
Okay, so if we try to pull all these threads together, what's the final picture? It sounds incredibly complicated.
It really is. It seems the Snow White remake's struggles weren't down to just one thing. It was more like a perfect storm.
You had the visual problems, the creepy dwarves.
Yep. Then the controversial creative choices, like changing the prince and the kiss, which really rubbed core fans the wrong way.
And then layered on top of all that, the huge controversy around Rachel Zegler. Her statements, her political stances, the way she handled it.
Which really seemed to polarize potential viewers. And all of this happening against that backdrop of, the sensitive geopolitical climate Gadot initially mentioned, plus the general tiredness people feel toward remakes anyway.
So multiple things all hitting at once.
A confluence of factors, definitely.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? This whole situation leaves us with a kind of provocative thought for you, the list to chew on.
Yeah, think about this. How can creators today even begin to navigate this kind of minefield? You've got these beloved classic stories with huge legacies.
Right, massive expectations attached.
Massive expectations. Then you have artists wanting to interpret them, maybe modernize them. But you also have the audience whose expectations are shaped by nostalgia and modern sensibilities.
And don't forget the impact of the stars themselves, their personal brand, their politic, everything they say online.
Exactly. That whole layer of celebrity culture and external discourse crashing into the filmmaking process. How do you balance artistic vision, honoring a legacy, meeting audience expectations, and managing the unpredictable world of social politics today?
It's a huge challenge, something to really ponder, especially for anyone involved in making these big cultural products. Now, how do you even approach it?
A very complex question. No easy answer.